gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. In the fields of bodies burning, as the war machine keeps turning. Death and hatred to mankind, poisoning their brainwashed minds. Oh, Lord, yeah.
Chevy and Nasty. Host Randy Chevrier and Sheldon Napashka guide you through great stories that spark great conversations. Two really big guys talking a big game. The boys are locked in and ready to go. Welcome to the ride.
Welcome to the ride, everybody. And I think we got a good one for you guys tonight. It's been a while. A lot has happened this week. Some really good stuff, some really sad stuff.
Yeah,
including right there our tribute to Ozzy Osbourne, founder of Black Sabbath, passes away earlier today, which is I didn't see that coming at all. He's busy doing his final tour with Black Sabbath right now, and the news comes out. Sad news. I'm sure we'll touch on that in a little bit, but
yeah.
Well, welcome everybody that could join us tonight for episode 84. And as always, we're brought to you by Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media, and YYC Calgary Business Group. And guys, we're glad you guys could join along tonight. Chev, where do you want to start off? Episode 84. What do you got for us?
Well, episode 84, again, we're into the receivers, some of the great receivers. When you think about NFL especially, some of the greatest of all time, we're looking at Randy Moss right up there in the top corner. And we talked about Randy Moss a few weeks ago because he wore a different number. I believe it was 81 or 82 with, no, it was probably 81 with the Patriots. But here he is, his original number that everyone really knew him for with the Minnesota Vikings, 84, Randy Moss. We got Shannon Sharp and Antonio Brown at the bottom there. So a couple of guys, super famous, really great athletes. A few of them are infamous. Sheldon, you're making your NFL roster. Which of these guys are you putting on?
Oh, we're dude, you can't go wrong with any of these guys. And they're all kind of out of that same, cut from the same cloth of that era of football. I think I'm a Sharp guy, though. You know,
he
had the long arms, long legs. He could jump. He could go up for it. He could fight you. Yeah, I'm big on Sharp. I got to say, him and his brother.
You know what? Shannon Sharp and Sterling Sharp both wore 84, by the way. Yeah, great football player. I think I like Shannon Sharp more as a podcaster and a broadcaster than I did as a football player. Like, I liked him as a football player, don't get me wrong. And he played in the great days of the Denver Broncos with the Ed McCaffreys of the world and all those guys. But I mean, he's really great as a podcaster. He's come under a little bit of fire recently. There's been a few contentious issues in the last couple of years. One, namely, being his phone being left on while he was engaging in carnal relations with his girlfriend, and then I believe last year, what was the other one he was accused of? I don't know. He's been under fire a couple of times. But then at the bottom there, you have Antonio Brown. Yeah. We obviously know a great, talented football player. Fell off the rails a bit, and it really, I guess, came to a header there when he was with Tampa, and Tom Brady did everything to bring him in, and he just walked off the field. And his side of the story is that the team, wanted him to play hurt and all this and that. But, if I'm going to pick one of these guys, I got to say Randy Moss as well. One, he's got the best first name in the world, but two, I mean, he has literally a whole jargon named after him. Like, they have segments of TV shows called You Got Mossed, and that's because he made famous the catching the ball over the guy's head and scoring a touchdown, and it inspired generations of future wide receivers to just to up their game. Like, before, that was a special play. Now it's like you can't be in the NFL if you can't moss a guy. So for me, the guy I'm picking is Randy Moss. He had that stellar season with the Patriots. Unfortunately, they didn't win a Super Bowl, and he never got a Super Bowl. But I'm still thinking that he's the number one guy, and great for him this year. He left the network for a while because he was dealing with some form of cancer, but he actually made a return. So good to see that he's healthy and moving along. But Sheldon, we got a special episode today, right? There's so much going on in the world, like you mentioned, but tonight we managed to secure a guest, a guy that we've been wanting to have on for a long time. Not going to give away too much right now. His name is Darin Burns. He might not be a household name for many of you, but he plays football. He's 61 years old. He's played tackle football in every decade of his life, including, he had some work in the CFL in the 80s, but he just completed his last regular season game last weekend, and he's heading into the playoffs this week. He lives in Moncton. So for those of you that think the show is late tonight, it's 1:30 his time, and he's chomping at the bit to get on the air to share his story with you. We've been wanting to have him for a while to talk about his story, but not just the football, because the football is like a small morsel of his journey. And we talk about men's mental health and men's health and doing things with purpose and doing things like we talked about last week when we talk about the mental health movement. I don't think there's no greater an example than what Darin's doing. So we'll have him on a bit, but we want to keep with some of the staples. So I think before we go to a break and welcome Darin, Sheldon, we always have a poem for the gang. So guys, without further ado, some 300-pound poetry.
And now, 300-pound poetry with Chevy and Nasty.
Made it this Tuesday Night Live. We are Chevy and Nasty, and this is our ride.
On this Tuesday night, we have a very special guest, so this show may run a bit longer, but that's probably for the best.
Would you play tackle football at the age of 61? If there wasn't a clear purpose, could you just do it for fun?
Well, that's only part of the story shared by tonight's guest. We'll talk about men's health and life and being put to the test.
We may also touch on some of our usual subject matter, from CFL to CEOs who on kiss cams do scatter.
We are your 300-pound poets. Tonight's ride might get a bit heavy with a special guest on this show. And of course, I'm Nasty and he's Chevy. Let's do this, brother.
All right, guys. So this is what we're going to do. Once the song cuts out, we're going to take a break in a second, and you guys get a drink. Get ready, because when we get back at the top of this break, we're going to have Darin Burns right here on the ride.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
And welcome back to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty, brought to you each week by Performance Freight Management, We Drone Real Estate Media, and YYC Business. And guys, you know where to find us at Chevy and Nasty on all socials and podcast networks. Please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, and again, even repost some of our reels that we put up. We're going to put up a lot of reels as we do each week after the show, and we just want to grow this community. And speaking of growing in this community, we talked about it before the break. I've been wanting to get this guy on for a while. You know, back in COVID, Sheldon, when I had made my comeback with the Stampeders at 45 years old, I was looking around and there was a few people doing some great things. And I kind of stumbled across Darin Burns on Facebook through some mutual contacts. And I started, you know, following his journey and following what he was doing. And I didn't know Darin before this, and, you know, reached out a couple of times on Facebook, really just to encourage him. You know, before we started our show back up, I was really feeling a certain way about men's health and men's mental health. And really, one of the things that I really wanted to put forth in this world is encouraging people doing extraordinary things. Now, at first thought, you think, oh, you know, at that time he was in his 50s, a 56-year-old guy playing football. Well, people would poo-poo that and say, well, you know, this guy's crazy or whatever. You know, naysayers are everywhere. And I said, I'm going to be the voice of the person I want to be if I'm trying something, the voice of support. So I reached out to him, told him, hey, brother, I love what you're doing. I'm going to keep following you. And from there, just grew a little online relationship. But as it grew, and I started learning more and more about Darin, I started realizing this guy is not just there to play football. He's there on a mission. So without further ado, let's welcome Darin to the show. Darin, welcome to The Ride with Chevy and Nasty.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Really great. So it's 1:30 there in Moncton. Are you coffeed up? Are you ready to go?
I had my Reese's peanut butter cup. I got some sugar into me, so I'm all set.
Oh, I love it. A man after my own heart.
You got to have the caramel in it, though.
There you go. I'm more of a purist, I think, with the Reese's, but I will go out there and try it with the caramel tomorrow.
Oh, it's really good.
So Darin, thank you again for coming on the show. Thanks for taking your Reese's cups and being ready for this. You know, when we talked yesterday, we've talked online. I never know where to start with this. You could start at the start, but you know, the thing that sticks out right now is you're a 61-year-old man in great shape, defensive tackle. You're playing semi-professional football. Is that with the is it the Moncton Mustangs? Is that correct?
No, that Moncton was in 2021.
It's the Longhorns.
I've been playing the Longhorns in Burlington now. Yeah.
So Burlington Longhorns, you just played your last regular season game and you're heading into the playoffs this weekend. When we talked yesterday, you weren't too sure exactly what the placing is. What's happening this weekend for you guys?
We play 7:00 Saturday night in Burns. So I got to fly back on, Saturday morning. I fly back into Toronto. We play against Sudbury in the semifinals. We beat them 35-10 in the regular season. So I'm hoping that, you know, the football gods will bless us with the W and we can get into the finals and I can walk away as a champion.
So that's
and that would be
amazing.
amazing because
Yeah.
guys, I'm going to tell you right now, like Chevy has been talking about you for well over a year about this is the kind of guy we have to have on the show, and tonight as we're preparing for it, I'm on your Instagram, I'm on your Facebook, guys. He's not just a 61-year-old guy playing. He played his final regular season game last weekend, and you grinded out a sack,
Yeah.
almost a safety. I don't know, from my angle, it almost looked like it was a safety, but you're still getting after it, and you're still grinding out. In fact, guys, we'll give you social media details here in a little bit, but you're not just playing to play. You're still a contributing member, and you're still being
Well,
productive.
last season I had 6 sacks and 15 tackles playing nose tackle. So I still play. I led the league in 21. I led the league in sacks. So I personally I could play probably into the 7th decade if I really wanted to. I could probably push it to 65. I mean, I'm benching 405. I did 225 for 22 reps in the gym just before the season started. Um, you know, the body's getting a little banged up. I've got a torn patella. I tore my left bicep the end of the first quarter in the first game of the season. So I've been playing with a torn left arm, and I've been playing through the pain and doing the things I need to do to get myself ready for the games. I get a lot of treatment and stuff, but I'm having fun, and that's the main thing. And when you're doing something for purpose, the little things like the pain and the stuff like that is second. It doesn't bother me as much. Sure, after the game, I'm a beat up, but when the whistle goes, I'm a 25-year-old on the football field. That's how I feel, and that's how I act.
Well, that's how you
So-
played. Like Trey, run this back 1 second if you can. Guys, if you guys are watching this on YouTube or Facebook Live right now, Darin is the guy in the black socks playing nose tackle on his position. He fires off into the center, keeps the legs driving. The quarterback is forced up into the pocket. You get off the block and you make a sack. Dude, you grinded out a freaking sack against probably a 25, 30-year-old quarterback. I mean, that's impressive.
Thank you. Well, like I said, I put a lot of hours into the gym. Like I probably trained 1,200 hours last year to play, 8 hours of football.
And that's the truth of it, right? The truth of
Yeah.
it is, and Sheldon played nose tackle, I played nose tackle. I remember once in college, I did the math in my head in my draft year, and I could have gone to teach. I had my degree, and I was like, man, I trained like 3-4 hours, like I 4 hours a day, 7 days a week for about 10 minutes of all out effort. And I was like, why am I doing this? And then that was actually the night I got stabbed in college, and it kind of reset me. But it's not about me. What this is, and truthfully, guys, we could talk the football all night, and we'll get back to the football. And for most of our guys listening, we're a show for dudes. Guys, listen in, and this is a really impressive story. If the story was only about a 61-year-old guy playing football, with the ability to go into 7th decade, benching 405, it would be remarkable at that. And we could just focus there. But I think we have to go back in time. We have to go back in time because I know there's more to this onion, and I want to unpeel it. So, what I know is that, Darin, when you started off, you had a pretty rough childhood. And I think we got to start the story with that, because this story is not just about the football. It's about that beginning and the journey you took to get here and what this journey is about. So let's tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how you grew up.
Well, I grew up in Mississauga. I grew up with an abusive family situation. My father was quite violent. My mother was 16, turning 17. My father was 24. There was a lot of fighting going on with them. I remember, when I was 4.5 years of age, my brother was about 1.5 years old. My parents had a fight, and they both took off, and they were gone for 9 days. Each one of them thought that the other one had the kids. They didn't have either one of us. Well, social services came in 9 days later. I was in the kitchen baking. We were talking about cooking. I was baking an angel food cake in the kitchen, and the police with my grandmother came into the apartment and took us out and put me under my grandmother's care for a bit, and then eventually back to my father. And my father drove truck, so he went out and hired babysitters. Well, he hired a couple of guys that were male babysitters that were pedophiles. So for about 1.5 years, I was a pincushion till I was about almost 6 years of age. Then from there, nothing was ever done about that. We bounced around. My father was always evicted out of places. So I went to 27 different schools by the time I got to grade 9. Later in when I was
And
10
Darin,
years
sorry,
old.
Darin, let me cut you off. When you say you're a pincushion, let's be clear
I
with
was
the
raped.
listeners.
I was raped. I was
Yeah,
raped and abused about 200
yeah.
times.
And you said you were 6 years old to 10 years old.
4.5 until almost by the time I turned 6. That was the first time that happened. And then I was shipped around to different families and stuff. I stayed on a farm. I lived here, I lived there. I stayed at my uncle's for a bit. All over the place. Then I was placed in Salvation Army Children's Village in London, Ontario, where an employee there physically raped me and abused me for a year while I was there. I got out of there. I went back, stayed with my grandmother, and then my father got married and just moved in with him and his wife. I was there for about 4 months, and my dad broke my jaw, beat me up, did all kinds of crazy things. So I ended up being placed in the Children's Salvation Army, not Salvation Army, I was placed in Children's Aid Society, which was actually probably the highlight, the blessing of my life. Like when you think about fate or what happens, I was destined to be a troubled child. I was destined to be, whatever. I mean, when I was 7 years old, I was stealing food from grocery stores so my brother and I could eat because of money. So, the things that I had to do up until I was 10 years of age, I don't think there's a 10-year-old on the planet that went through what I went through.
Darin, let me rewind that for 1 second.
Mhm.
Because what I'm still grappling with. I know like the sexual abuse was horrific.
Mhm.
But I'm going to take it back even a step further. You're 4.5 years old. Mom and dad had a fight. They went separate ways, and it's you and your brother.
Yep.
And you're cooking an angel food cake.
Yeah, I actually had it baked. It was baked, and I always remember it because back when we were younger, if you guys remember, when Lucky Whip was in a foil package, you had to take it, dump it, and then blend it and stuff like that. Well, I didn't understand what a blender was, so I'm in there trying to beat it with a fork, and nothing was happening. So I was pouring it over the angel food cake when they came in, and there were shitty diapers everywhere. It was a 4.5-year-old running the house for 9 days. It's not the cleanest place to be in, but yeah.
God, I've got so many places I want to take this.
But
Because I know we're okay. Go ahead, Randy.
No, you go, Sheldon.
Okay,
because I know
here's where I'm going to take this. We're all dads here.
Mhm.
A 4.5-year-old having to survive at the most guttural level of just trying to get by. Those memories, and I'm sure you've told the story a few times, but what does that do to a guy where you were 4.5 and you were cooking for sustenance for you and your brother to survive? Like, is that something that you look back now? And obviously the situation wasn't something like you take pride in and say, yeah, I toughed it out. I gutted it out. How does that affect a guy when he's 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 to know that I first cooked my own first meal when I was 4.5 years old?
Yeah. Well, it made me a hell of a football player. Gave me a lot of anger inside because that's how I played in my younger years. I played with, a lot of anger. Like, I visualized certain things. I visualized before a game to get fired up, I would think about being raped. Things like dark thoughts that went through my head, and that just helped me to get my game. And, like back when I was in my 20s, I was one of the best defensive linemen in Canada, period. Coming in, even to play and go to the pros, I was highly recruited. My records still stand today. The records for sacks in a game, season, and career. I hold them all for Burlington. I hold them all in Ontario. I'm in the top 3, I think, in the history of Canadian junior football. So, yes, it was bad, but I don't want people to feel sorry for me because I'm in a good spot today. It was,
Right.
I had to go through that to get to meeting Bruce. So,
Right. And let me get to that because I was going to say your story is not just a story of a guy who survived on his own.
No.
There's so many layers, and you mentioned it. You said before you were placed in the Aid Society, you were destined for a bad outcome, right? Not the outcome we see today, and that kind of changed it around. And you made some changes, but not only did you make some changes, and not only were you tough, and not only self-sustaining, but someone came into your life. So tell us a little bit about that story, because obviously you go from, oh my gosh, this is my life, to, hey, wait a second, maybe there's a way out. So walk us through that, because I know that's a really interesting story about how you met Bruce, who you mentioned.
Well, I never played football. I was a hockey player. I played baseball and hockey. Those are the two things. I played goalie because it was cheap. They supplied the goalie gear, and baseball, you get a glove and a hat, and away you go, right? So I played sports like that, and I didn't really have any interest in playing football. But I was in my group home in Mississauga, and as in Children's Aid, and I was 14 years old. And for some strange reason, I decided I want to go to this football camp run by the Argos, and that is probably the best decision I ever made in my life, even till this day. I went to the camp. I had a blast. It was the first time on the football field, and they had me playing receiver. They had me playing some line because I was kind of in that, where does this kid fit in? Anyhow, after the camp was finished, I had to get back to my group home, and I hitchhiked. So I would have I had a garbage bag over my shoulder and had all the football stuff inside there, and I was walking down, I think it's Rathburn, to get towards Bermanthorpe Road, and this big black Mercedes pulls along the side, and the window pulls down, and he goes, "Hey boy, what are you doing hitchhiking?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I'm trying to get back to my group home." And I knew who he was because he was one of the coaches at the camp and happened to be the captain of the Toronto Argos, Bruce Smith. And he says, "You can't be hitchhiking." He says, "Get in my car." And he said, "Where do you live?" I said, "Mississauga." He was in downtown Toronto. Well, they're the opposite directions. So he took the time, drove me to my group home, and talked to me and asked me questions and stuff and said goodbye. And I just didn't think anything more of it. The next day, bang on the door, there's Bruce. He drove from downtown Toronto to come to take me to a gym. He says, "If you're going to play football, you got to lift weights. So I'm taking you to a gym." And I said, "So get some gym stuff." I didn't have any. So he took me to a place and bought me some running shoes and shorts and a shirt and all that kind of stuff, and took me to Vic Tanny's and started me up. And, in that day, I was with Bruce, and then Angela Moscow walks in, and Angie played with Bruce, and Angie was now a wrestler. And I was just in this awe, like meeting all these guys.
Sure.
I was just like, wow, this is like great, So
How old are you here, Darin? Or you're 14?
I was 14 years old. And my son, the reason why he wears number 68 is because Angie asked him to on his retirement party. My son, he wouldn't wear my number or Bruce's number. He wore Angie's number. But anyhow, and actually that's a picture of me pointing up to Bruce after my sack.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So you meet him, he takes you to train, and obviously your relationship grew since then.
It wasn't just lifting weights. He took me to the place. Yeah. And I mean, Bruce was a big guy and muscular and all that stuff. So I didn't really stand a chance in the gym lifting with him, obviously at 14. But he said, "We're gonna go running." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I got this big son of a bitch. I'll beat him running."
Did you?
So no, I was crossing like the 25 and he was crossing the 50.
So you're 14. You were just 4. Just 10 years earlier was when everything really started falling apart.
But and then something, I don't call it falling apart because when a dog gets beaten his whole life, it becomes breathing. So
that's a generational thing, isn't it? Like I think each generation after that we all lose a little something from it. But let me ask you this: so when Bruce picked you up on the side of the road, like that had to have been one of the first times in your life where you felt like where you got a break. Here's a guy
or were you nervous about it? Or were you worried about it because of your previous experience?
No, I know, because I knew him because Bruce was
his coach.
If anyone never met or knew Bruce was just a loud, boisterous guy. And when you're on a football field there at a camp, trust me, Bruce is in the neighborhood. He was very loud and boisterous and stuff like that. And that's why I'm loud and boisterous. I mimic myself a lot of Bruce. Like what Bruce did, I did, with his career and all that kind of stuff. And I played defensive line because of him. I wear his number because of him. He went to real estate. I went to real estate, became a minister. And I said, well, I'm not going to go that route. But he took the time, put me under his wing. He got me to be a ball boy for the Argos. So he was playing for Toronto when Terry Metcalf was there. And so I was a ball boy with Eric Metcalf, Alonzo Highsmith, and myself. And I think when I was 14, Forrest Gregg was the coach. So, Forrest Gregg's pedigree was right to Vince Lombardi. Vince Lombardi always says that Forrest Gregg was the greatest football player he ever coached. So as a 14-year-old, I'm in a locker room with the god of football says that's the greatest football player. So now I'm going to the Forrest's apartment. I'm meeting his wife and the kids, and I'm eating there and stuff like that. And I was a ball boy there for 2 years. And I got to we had a running back on the team, Eddie Payton, and he was a specialist kick returner for the Argos. And Forrest asked me, he said, we need you to do something. There's a guest that's going to be coming. Eddie's brother's going to be coming to watch the game. We want you to sit with him in the press box, whatever he needs, get it for him, blah, blah, blah. Sure. So I didn't go on the field that day. I went up into the press box and it was Walter Payton. So I got to hang with Walter Payton for a whole afternoon. So now I'm 14 and sitting with, at that time, the greatest running back in the history of football. And, I just asked him questions and he talked, and Walter said to me, he said, whatever you want, Darin, in life, you got to go out and get it and work harder than anybody else. If you do that, you'll be successful. And that was the advice Walter gave me.
That's a hell of a summer. And I tell you, I've had
that's not even the hell of the summer. Toronto was playing Ottawa, and I was sitting on the sidelines, and CBC back then were televising the games, and this guy came running on the field, and he took the football and started running around the exhibition stadium. The security guards were getting him, and Terry Metcalf looks at me and he goes, Darin, $20 if you get him. So I got off that fucking bench and I ran out onto the field, and the guy was running, looking behind him. He didn't see me coming this way. CBC called it the hit of the game. I hit him so hard the ball was flying up into the air and stuff. To me, that was my highlight of the summer. That was the greatest thing, to lay a guy out right in front of 50,000 spectators. So that's where I got my taste of wanting to be a pro football player, like do a hit like that and have the whole stadium went completely bananas. And Terry was killing himself laughing on the sideline. Bruce was, they were almost peed themselves laughing. It was so funny. But that was I did that when I was 14. So the next year,
you know what I love about that, Darin, is like we've played a lot of, you played with a ton of guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that when you play pro sports, it doesn't matter if this guy had NFL experience, won a Super Bowl, played CFL, played a men's league, played semi-pro arena. Guys are guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like to me like Bruce Smith was that guy. He didn't care which league, which country, which city he is in. He was just a big personality. And you tend to try to look out to help people or to bring people along. Did he have any idea that the impact that he would have on your life that day? Would he have done that for just anybody? Or like, to me, it's a remarkable story that Bruce found you on that highway on that day hitchhiking.
Well,
and the impact
Bruce used to say to me later on in life that it was God's work, because Bruce was not a religious person at all. Like, he was the biggest whore master, captain. He owned the city of Toronto. He had women raped all over him. Women bought him fur coats, Mercedes. I mean, he was. I looked at him and I was like, wow, I really want to be him. So but he came from a broken family. He was raised in Brownsville, Texas in the 50s, being black, which would not be a picnic. And to have a stepfather that used to beat him, and then for him to stop and give the time to a skinny, long hair, white kid off the side of the road. The thing I take from that is that love knows no color.
So Darin, let me ask you this. Obviously, the football is a great experience and your career takes off. And at what point does your mentorship with Bruce go into deeper than just football? Like you say Bruce is like your father figure. And in fact, I believe I saw some pictures. He was at your wedding. He was
I did his eulogy.
So you guys were, from that moment on, tied together. So when did it get a little deeper? Because again,
immediately, like Bruce.
I was just gonna say, the story you're sharing now about the abuse and everything you'd been through. In those days, nobody shared that stuff.
No,
you couldn't go in the locker room in the 70s and the 80s and talk openly and freely without guys giving you more bullying. We talk about that too. So at what point does the relationship develop that you can open up to this guy and he could be that support for you?
I was about 16 when I told him about the being raped. Prior to that, he knew I was beaten up and abused, and I didn't really get into too much details. And Bruce never pushed the issue. He just, I don't know, like, he was the first person that ever showed me respect and unconditional love. So, I think, that conversation I had with him, he was the only person I ever told it to, because, you just didn't talk about it. So, like, he was the person that kind of helped me through getting through the emotional part of it. and giving me the confidence and stuff I have to come forward and talk about it. And then I didn't talk about it to anybody else other than to the last 6-7 years because, I felt, after Bruce passing, I felt that I needed to tell my story because, Bruce would have wanted me to do it, and he would want me to try to save some lives, which I have. I had one person who's going to commit suicide, and they saw me on a show, and I can't remember what show it was. It was 4 or 5 years ago, and he reached out to me, and he was about to hang himself over his mother's grave, and he was raped. And I said to the guy, I said, why would you give that prick the sasatisfaction? And, you're talking to me about it now. Let's get a friend. Let's talk. You don't need to go to a psychologist. I always tell people you don't have to go to these doctors and stuff like that. Find someone that you got confidence in and talk to them to the point that you feel comfortable enough that you can talk to a doctor or to other people about it. So, Bruce was my sounding board for that. So I was, young and talking about that. And, we talked about it, but then we never got into depth with it because we both kind of like just let it there. He understood where I was coming from. I felt good about talking to him about it, but that was the end of it. It's kind of like, it's behind me. My life, I was born in 1978, not 1964. In May that's when I met Bruce. So that's where my life changed, and that's how I look at it. I was born that day. I felt like I was. I felt I had value. I felt that I was worth something. And he made me feel like that way, and giving me opportunities. One of the things, Bruce, I needed $20 one time. And, Bruce said, well, I got a fireplace at my house that needs sanding. So go sand it and I'll give you $20. He installed values and installed the things and showed me how to live, and showed me how to be a man, and that's, and I wish there were more athletes like Bruce that are not worried about, sure, Bruce liked the contract and getting his pay and stuff like that. But he was sincerely a great human being, and he, we need more people like that. We need more athletes to come forward and help kids out and do that sort of stuff. Like he was an amazing person. I wish the kids today, you can see him on YouTube talking and stuff like that, but I wish kids today could have actually met Bruce and gone forward.
So let me ask you that then. So obviously you're a hell of a football player as well. I mean, you've got records that are still standing in Ontario. How much did
Canada?
In Canada.
I worked hard for those, so I take credit for that.
How much is the Bruce influence on you that the reason? I mean, you're a grown man. You've worked. You've been in different industries. You make your money, but you keep giving back to the game of football. How much of that was from Bruce, and how much of that is just because, dude, I love to play ball?
It's a combination. I love the game, the sport. The only thing I like about football, and whereas in life, when I was coming through, like when I'm in life, people attack you from different angles, and nowadays people on social media and all that kind of stuff, people are just so, a nerd with a laptop is now a 400-pound gorilla, So I like the fact that on a football field, I can see everything coming at me, and I feel safe there. So I love it. And, and for me now, since Bruce has been gone, I think I talked about this before, I feel that Bruce is with me still. When I'm on the football field, I don't think he's gone. And I was talking to Tony Gabriel about this a couple of weeks ago. And Tony was one of Bruce's roommates, and they played together in Hamilton and then in Ottawa. And, Tony's said to me, and it's on the back of the book as well, that, he was more number 61 on the jersey, but number 1 in our hearts. But he said him and Granny and Gene Mack, they both messaged me and they said, Burnsley, thanks for keeping our friends. They said it's not like he's, as long as I'm playing football, they don't feel he's dead because they see him all the time on social media with me. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just trying to honor Bruce.
But let me sorry, Darin. I was going to say, before we get to how you're honoring him, there was a period after he passed away and you delivered eulogy that you kind of, you had a dip, right? Like it wasn't hey, Bruce is gone, I got a mission, right? Like, because we talked about this, how you had to be picked up, and it was your own son that talked you kind of into where you're at now. So let's go into that a bit, because I want to kind of go along that timeline of how things went for you to get to this point.
Well, Bruce passed. I took it pretty hard because, he was the first, like, when you have parents and you have all these things, you can process things. You learn how to be a father, watching your father with your mother, how they act. So obviously I didn't have good role models there. Bruce, um, Bruce was everything to me. Like I didn't know how to deal with his death. Doing his eulogy was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. It's like, I mean, the funeral home was packed. There was like 5,000 people there. The Lieutenant Governor of Canada, the Mayor of Toronto.
And how old were you when you lost Bruce? When Bruce died?
I was 46.
Yeah. So
7.
really a real father figure then.
Yeah, no, he was with me 4 months before he died. There's the pictures of I don't know if you've seen them around social media where we're dressed up as Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah.
And so we were together there, and that was in August, and he died in January. And he called me in December. I heard from him for a week, and he said, "Darin, I got some good news and bad news." And I was like, "Okay, well, what's the news?" And he said, "Well, the good news is I had a heart attack." And I'm thinking to myself, "Okay, well then fuck, you're talking to me. What can be the bad news?" And he says, "I got pancreatic cancer. I got 90 days to live." So I had injured my ankle. That actually broke my ankle, and I was waiting to go to the hospital that night to get a cast on it. And I ran down the stairs. My ex-wife was down there, and I told her what was going on. I had a walking boot. Being a football player, we got braces for everything. So I just grabbed a walking boot and I threw it on my leg on my broken ankle. I got a plane, flew to Toronto, spent 3 days with Bruce because I didn't want to see Bruce deteriorate. I wanted him to, he was my Superman. I wanted to see him as Superman. So I flew down and spent 3 days with him at his apartment with his wife and kids. And I had a long talk with him and expectations and stuff like that, what he expected of me and what he wanted me to do. So, part of it was to carry his legacy, and how do I do that? And I didn't really know, and then he died, and then I did his eulogy. I did all this stuff, and then because I didn't have that person that I could talk to and take what's inside of me out and discuss it with him, because at that point I was talking to him about the abuse, and I was talking to him about all the things I went through. He that's gone. So I started eating. I didn't want to work out. I lost my purpose. I lost focus. I went to a 47 waist. I played ball at 325, but I was a muscular 325. Now I'm 325 with a 47 waist. Now I'm 295 with a 34 waist, so I'm got my body back. But I went through it. But it was my son. I was driving him because he was playing football in the States in Tennessee. And he was home, and he said, "Dad, I got to talk to you." I go, "What?" And in the car, he says, "You need to get back into the gym." I said, "Why?" He says, "You look like shit." So it was one of them conversations. So, I took it for granted. So, the crazy thing about it is that I took that picture, and I think, Randy, you might have seen it on Facebook. I've had it on there. I've had the fat belly and stuff like that. Um, I didn't pay attention to the date. I was more in the zone of going to the gym. So I got these pictures taken, and I started working out. And about a month later, I went back to look at the picture again to see, what I looked like. And it was on January 3rd. It was the anniversary of Bruce's death. Yeah, there's the picture there. And then you take that down and put a picture of what I look like now, please. I don't want people to think I look like that. But, for me, it was it was a wake up call. I battled cancer. I got divorced, which was probably the best thing that's probably the second best thing I've ever done in my life. And I just focused on getting back. And my son comes up to me and says, "Dad, no one's ever played in 6 decades." So I was like, "What do you mean?" And he says, in Canada, no one's ever played in 6 consecutive decades. And if you go and play, you can do it. Well, then COVID came in, and they killed that 1 year, but then they gave me an extra year to train. So I decided, okay, now I'm going to go back and play. So I went and I dressed up and I played, and I led the league in sacks that year, and we won the championship. So, getting back in that mindset. And then I realized, I said, "I'm loving this game. I'm having a great time. So let's go." And then I was on Rod Peterson's show, and one of his fans messaged me privately, and they were saying, "Darin, why don't you play to Bruce's football number and honor him that way?" And I was like, there it is,
But
So
you're doing more than just honoring him, because not only did you rediscover yourself, I mean, look at you right there. You look like a battle tank. I mean, geez, if I look like that at 61, I'll be a happy guy, because I trained pretty hard, but I'm like every day I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna go that way. But I'm loving it, because I often talk with Sheldon and I say, yeah, I have one more in me till I'm 50, and then I'll file my CFL retirement papers. And every once in a while I get asked by the Alberta Football League, I think it's the AFL, to go out and play. And I think they have quarterback Darrell Leeson, that I think he played CIS back when we played.
I used to compete against him in high school. Him and I were kind of the same vintage in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, his son's in the NHL, and he's still playing in the Alberta Football League.
They asked me to come out and play next year, and I said no.
but the thing is, you're honoring Bruce and showing that so many things. The power of his mentorship over you, the power of your mentorship and your relationship with your son, because obviously that's huge. Like, for your son to be able to inspire you that way. But we said at the beginning, it's a fantastic football story, but it's not just about the football. You go back to the beginning of your story, how it started. The football now has purpose. So let's get into that, because, we're all about not just telling great stories and having great conversations, but really focusing on, where the good is. And the good lies in what you're doing with your story and how you're using football to tell it. Because again, we said back in the day you couldn't, but now you're telling your story. You're telling your story about abuse with us. You're sharing it with other podcasts. What's the end goal now? Like, where is this story going?
Next? Yeah.
That is a good question. I've been thinking about what would go. Maybe I'll do my own show. Maybe I'll do something. Maybe I'll be a motivational speaker. I'm not going to coach football because I hate parents. I don't. I don't have that. I'm a good coach, but I couldn't do that. I thought of maybe trying to coach pro. Because let's face it, I played the position for 47 years. I know probably the position better than most people on the planet. But I think telling Bruce's story, talking about giving back, and like, you look at the abuse that I went through, and then we take a look at our social issues. This is when we go down the road. This is where I'm thinking, like, our social issues, like homelessness across Canada and through the States is record high.
Yeah.
People that are in jail, they're busting out. People are committing suicide. People are on drugs. People are, homelessness, drugs, suicide, and anyhow, I can't think of them all. But the 75 to 80% of them have one thing in common, is that they were abused when they were younger. So when you take a tree and you cut the roots off of a tree, the tree doesn't grow. My roots were cut off, and I was a log on the side of the road. Bruce happened to catch me at that very last second and put me in a pot of soil with some water and help me grow some roots. I think that my legacy and what I want to do is to try to, if we want to prevent homelessness, drug addiction, suicide, people going to jail and all that kind of stuff, it starts with the kids. The kids get damaged. They give up on life. They give up on things. And now we deal with this. Now, how do we deal with it? Well, we give them a safe place for needles. We do this, we do that. We throw them a meal here and there. All they are is Band-Aids, because the politicians don't want to have the dirty talk about why are they here? Why are they giving up on life? Why are they doing all this stuff? Because let's face it, my book, if you read it, it's dark. It's inspiring, but it's dark. Like my own doctor said, Jesus, I wouldn't let my son read it. And I let him, at least it was a great read, but I wouldn't. I said, well, why not? Because, he could have a friend that could have the same problem that I've had, and he'll understand that it's going through, that you need to get out, you need to get that person, you need that person to talk. So I'm trying to get the word out and stand there. And I want more athletes, you guys, hockey players, baseball players, whatever, if they've gone through abuse, let's all stand up together. That's like you were talking about Randy Moss. And by the way, I like Sharp better. I think he's a classier player as far as character. But you get guys like that could stand up and say, I was abused. I was this. Because it's good for us to talk about it, because it helps us heal. But it also by standing up makes these kids want to come forward and tell their story, and we can get them help. We need more players like Bruce to stop thinking about their paychecks and stop thinking about this and start thinking that football is a privilege to play. Okay, I would play for a check, and I play for free. It's the love of the game. And being blessed to represent a city or an organization, it's an honor. You go there, you make the team, you do that. So so is it all about you, or is it about giving back too? Because that opportunity is about that.
And that's what keeps coming back to me here, because the awareness is big. If you take a look at guys like Sheldon Kennedy and what's his name here in Calgary?
Darin Fleury.
Darin, exactly. But the other thing is opportunities for mentorship. And I know there's big brothers and big sisters, but you talk about I'll tell you a story about that's less traumatic than what you went through, but the older guys that mentored me or brought me up and got me through certain times in my career. There's something about the grizzled vets, the guys that know how things go, that can see an opportunity to step in and help people out. Where are the mentors for the kids? And I think that's something where I think if we could invest time and money and resources, like you said, instead of catching them 10 years too late in the criminal justice system, is there a way to invest more into the kids that are troubled, aged 6 to 14?
Well, there's got to be set up some programs, and boys and girls clubs need more funding. We can throw billions of dollars at the Kardashians, but we can't put $1 billion to the friggin' society. We have gone. I did the podcast earlier today in the States, and I was trying to reference things, and I said, "Where's all this hatred in this world come from? Why are we always fighting about different things and stuff like that?" And I just think it's just a culture that has come across us. And I think that, we need to start being human again and start looking at things at a different perspective versus just about us. Because at the end of the day, our taxes are going up because we're funding all this stuff that's happened years ago, and we can set it. It's not, what I'm saying is not a magic pill. It's going to change things overnight.
Yeah.
But if I could be dug up out of the grave in 30 years from now and see that homelessness is down 20% because of this conversation we're having, then, that to me is that's what's important. So, I think that, as athletes, whatever sport we're in, we owe it back to our communities to give back, tell our stories. Why do we play football? How did this happen? When we start looking at the LGBT community and stuff like that, which, I was raped by gay pedophiles, but I don't hold the lesbians and all these people hostage on it. But they've created a culture that is more acceptable in society, and they're making their headways of trying to become like regular people, which they are, but like regular people and doing things. And I think that we need to have that conversation that we can be all open and talk about the abuse without being criticized, without being put down or made fun of and stuff like that. And I think that if we can get to that point as human beings, I think that we can start making changes. And I think if politicians would just stop thinking about being reelected, I think all politicians should just be one term and then we're out. You do the best job while you're in and get the hell out. We put another person in because it's almost like they think that
make them volunteer. Make them volunteer. Give up 4 years of your life to service, right?
Yeah, and that's enough, and then we move on and stuff like that. But because now it's about money, it's about this, it's about that, and they don't want to do the hard work, sit there, roll up the sleeves, and say, well, we're going to talk about rape, we're going to talk about kids being beaten up and stuff like that because we're going to fix this damn problem. People don't want to hear that. People, if I give them my book, they're going to be like, holy crap, but I needed to say it. I wanted people to read the book and understand that I felt pressure at 5 years of age in my ass.
Yeah.
I want
to say that in a nicer, prettier way.
Yeah. No, Darin, and I think,
but that's the facts of it. That is what it's about. And how do we help these kids, and how do we do all this stuff? So by me standing up and saying all the crazy things that happened to me, I'm hoping that young kids will hear that and they might come forward. And as more athletes can get involved, becomes more mainstream, and more mainstream means kids will become braver and they'll come forward, and we can start fixing the system.
You know what? And I think my big takeaway from you here, Darin, is and it's not going to be through studies or nice words or benefit concerts. It's going to be allocating resources towards, like you said, the YMCAs and different groups, putting good people behind it, more mentorship and more resources right on the ground level. It doesn't matter what a politician does or what singer comes in for the benefit concert. If there's not a guy picking up a kid on the side of the road saying, I can help you out.
Like if you get guys doing the pictures and stuff, like if you go through my page on my Facebook, you'll see me with a group of kids at bowling. You know what I do before my home games? I take kids from the Boys and Girls Club. I've rented a movie theaters. I've rented a bowling alleys and pizza and bust them in, and and had my teammates come and share, and my son come and share, and and show these kids that they're loved and respected. And and I do that on my own. And they look forward to it. And I think, and that's stuff that Bruce did, and that's stuff that is installed in me to, I when I do it, I'm doing that to honor Bruce. I'm doing it not for me. I'm doing it because of his legacy.
I'm going to tell you what, Darin, whether you feel it or see it or not, I do believe the change is happening that you're hoping for. Having played almost 20 years of professional football, I know the issues that were talked about when I started in the early 2000s are different than what's being talked about now, and things are more open. Your conversation, I know you've been doing the podcast circuit and the radio shows. Your voice is powerful. You're a big, tough, masculine man talking about these issues, and the word is getting out. It's getting out with the people listening to our show tonight. But I want to make sure, you mentioned it several times, I want to make sure that call to action, you mentioned the book. So
Yes.
You wrote a book. Where can people get it? We're going to probably have to take a break pretty quick here. Where can people get the book? Tell us a little bit about it. Obviously, we know the crux of it right now. And, what are, this is building towards advocacy for children being abused, right?
Yes, it's the book was to raise some money that I want to be donating to Boys and Girls Club. I don't want the money from the book. I want the book to be sold, so the money goes to programs. Like if I can buy some computers for Boys and Girls Club here and there, and to set up a food program and then get people behind it. That is the reason why. And I'm hoping that the book is. I've had a few people inquire about turning my book into a movie.
Oh, for sure.
So if I can pull
Well,
that, it'll be a lot of money. There'll be a lot of money that I can put to good uses for helping kids out and stuff like. Because it's all about money. I mean, if the government's not going to do anything, we got to do it ourselves. So,
you gotta do it. And Darin, you are off to a good start. I don't know if there's such thing as influencers in the 70s and 80s and 90s. I certainly don't remember that. But your clips are already getting millions of views, and you're getting the attention pointed. Brother, I just wish you all the luck at taking the fortune and the love that you're given by respectable men, and moving that thing forward to make sure that our kids in these next generations have the same kind of support, man. I love it.
The thing is that we just don't give up. That's my motto has always been keep the. Well, you saw when I got the sack. It's about keeping your legs moving forward. And what happened to me, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. This is not about a pity party.
Not a victim.
Yep.
This is. I want people to hear me. I want people to make changes.
Well, I promise you, Darin, I'm sure we're going to have you back on the show. 61 Bruce Smith will not be forgotten, and 61 Darin Burns will not be forgotten.
Anyone can follow me on Instagram.
Yep,
Darin, DARINJ61 at Darin J61 is my Instagram, and Darin DARIN Burns on my Facebook. People can follow me. I take my followers serious. Every follower that's on my Facebook page gets a personal happy birthday from me every year. I don't take that for granted. I communicate with everybody, even the naysayers. I still challenge them.
Well, Darin, it already looks like that you got your first speaking gig, so you better start getting it polished up. Our good friend Rob Evans, fire chief with Redwood Meadows, and he's part of the Alberta Fire Chiefs Association. He's going to be looking for a speaker, and looks like you guys will be chatting soon. So we're glad to amplify your platform. We're honored to have you on the show. I knew this was going to be good. I knew we were going to go long, but Darin, absolute honor. I'm sure the Reese's caramel cups are wearing off now. So
yeah,
we know you work tomorrow.
I'm going to be working 4.5 hours. But guys, again, I appreciate the time to help me get my word out. You guys are rock solid. Keep doing the good work that you're doing. And let's hopefully we all can make some changes in society, because that's, as human beings, that's what we're on the planet to do. Is, like when we die, we can't take it with us. It's Bruce is a rich person today.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Okay,
I
appreciate
think
you, brother.
he was as lucky to have you as you were to have him, and we're lucky to have you on the show. Thanks, Darin. We'll be in touch. We'll have you
Thanks, brother.
back.
I got to get
thanks
ready
so
to get.
much.
I got to go to Toronto and try to win a semifinal game this weekend.
That's
I'll-
it.
I'll
I'm
get-
following you.
I'll-
I'm following you, brother.
and I will get you guys a sacks. If you're watching, I will get a sack this week for you.
Hey,
Right
show
on.
us that gnarly finger. Like, show us that gnarly finger you showed me on the road just before we let you go. That's a
Oh,
Dan
yeah.
Kepley, Chris Walby finger.
Chris Walby
Yep,
would be really proud of that one.
That's an 80s, 70s, 80s finger right there.
Yeah, and I did
Yeah.
that one. I did that one last year, and the trainer was setting it on the field. She didn't do a very good job, Kelly, but it's character now. I finally got
It
some.
gives-
At least my nose
it
is still all right.
It gives space for the ring. All right, we'll let you go, guys. We're going to take a quick break here. When we get back, we'll wrap this thing up the way we normally do. Thanks again, Darin. We'll see you guys all in about 2 minutes.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Do you want your business to be known? YYCCalgaryBusiness.ca is Calgary's only online media platform that gets you noticed. Short-form video content is rapidly taking over as the most effective way to engage your audience. Whether you're being interviewed on a vodcast, sharing a sizzle reel, or even hosting your own show, there is one place you can publicize your business. We want to tell your story and introduce you to our network of empowered business owners and leaders right here in Calgary. Isn't it time you took your digital game to 11? Call us or email us now.
Whew. Yeah, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back to the ride, everyone. Dude, that was I'll tell you what, I'm going to reference something that Demetrius Maxey said on an earlier episode about. It's funny that today's players aren't as tough and resilient as we were, and we certainly weren't as the guys in the 80s and the 70s. This guy's had every bad thing that could ever happen to a kid happen to him. But he refuses to look at himself as a victim.
Yep.
And in fact, he's saying, I'm going to take what happened to me and I'm just going to make the world better. Like, oh, if that takes social media, it takes social media. If I have to go speak about it, I'll speak about it. I'm just going to pick up a shovel and get to work and make sure that when I leave this planet, like Bruce Smith, that I leave it a better place than when I got here.
And we talk about that often. A lot of times when we talk about politics, right? It's when we talk about politics, a lot of times the issues are being driven by people that either choose to play a victim or refuse to play a victim, right? And that's a lot of times how it goes. And not everybody can refuse. Like sometimes some of the victimization is so bad that you do need that help. But again, when you get that help, and then where do you go from there? And you look at this guy's story, is fantastic and fascinating. And really, like, you come into it, you think, oh, this is a football story about an old guy playing football. Okay, pretty cool, but whoop-de-doo. And then you peel it back and you realize, holy crap, there's a lot there. And what he's doing matters. It matters in this world. I did some work a few years ago with members of the Edmonton Eskimos when I was with Calgary and members of the BC Lions on domestic violence for a program we ran with the Alberta Council of Women's Shelters. And the stats are actually very alarming at how many young boys and men are abused. The reason it doesn't, there's no stats for it, because young boys and men historically will never report that. They will never report abuse, both sexual or physical in nature, or even emotional. No guy says, oh yeah, I felt bad because I was. So it's very underreported, but it's very, very prevalent. Then you mentioned Sheldon Kennedy. You mentioned Darin Fleury. There's still a lot of stigma that goes along with that because those are the only two from that team that spoke up. And there was a lot of other guys that were at Graham James residence over the years. And so there's still a stigma, but guys like Darin, really not just saying I was a tough guy and this is what happened to me. And but he's using a platform he has right now, playing football as a 61 years old, and he looks good and he's tough. And,
we didn't he's not tooting his own horn here either about the work that he's doing.
Yeah,
he was just on CBS News a couple of weeks ago, telling these stories. He's got millions of views on social media on some of his clips. This guy's a real deal, and the story's starting to get out there. I don't know what all podcasts he's been doing, but the story's getting out there. And I'll tell you what I respect so much about Darin is just this. He's not doing it for the fame. Yeah, he's a great storyteller, and he could tell stories all night. We could have had a 3-hour episode with him. His heart's like, dude, the only reason I exist is the only thing I want to be able to do is to repay society the way that Bruce Smith repaid me and gave me a second chance. If I can help, if I can just help, give me 10 kids that I can help, my life is worthwhile. And he's already been having that impact. So now I take it as a challenge. Okay, let's just stop talking about it. To me, it's the boys and girls clubs. What can guys like us do? Is like the kids up front. What can we do for the kids of this generation to really start making a difference? Anyway, I'm getting a little bit probably off track.
No, you're not, because again, it leads into a lot of what we do. I mean, look, we go coach kids football. When I go coach kids football, if my son decides he's not playing on the weekend because he's not feeling or he's injured, I still show up for the kids. I always, I tell Brittany, sometimes if my son is not playing much and, it's like, no, I still show up. I still show up because those kids rely upon me. When we had our men's mental health movie night, Sheldon, it was one of the biggest events of the year for us, and we've been talking about it. But it also happened to be potentially the final game, and I had to show up for those young men. I think we talked about that night. The mentorship.
You can't tell kids that they're important until I have something that I have fans coming to and I got to do, right?
Exactly.
It's either the kids are important or they're not important. They're either worth it or they're not. And that's what I love about the generation that he's coming from. He's got a few years on us, 10 years on me. That is one tough friggin' generation. I absolutely love where he's coming from.
And I think what's happening is having Darin on, and we talked about this. I love doing the reset to our show. We sat down one day, you and me at a coffee shop, and we said, what is the ride? Great stories spark great conversations. And that was everything. And it was a great conversation that gave us great stories. And it starts to sharing. I mean, we have in the comments there, Rob sharing with us something deeply personal that he's sharing. And because of Darin's story, maybe it's easier for Rob to share with his circle of people that he influences. Because, there's going to be guys Darin talks to that he has sort of that power level of influence. Well, Rob's a fire chief. There's going to be guys in his fire hall that he can now share stories with and feel like, what, I'm empowered to share this, and it's going to matter to someone. So again, it was fantastic. It's everything I thought it would be, the conversation with Darin, and more. Like the story about him tackling the streaker, the guy who stole the ball, that left field, pardon the pun. And it was probably, of the fun stories of the night, that was probably my favorite story of the night. Like you can't make that stuff up.
CBC hit of the game.
All
right. Well, let's try to end it. I need to get some sleep tonight. So let's try to end this on a bit more of a, let's take it back to, let's all take a moment here just to relax, enjoy, and reflect on some of the stories of the week. And Chev, last week he started switching this segment around. We used to do studs and duds. Now you turned it into studs or duds, and I'm loving that. What do you have for us tonight?
So this week,
studs and duds.
I'm going to take it back to all the naysayers here in the comments. Okay, hit it, Trey. The Calgary Stampeders are red hot. They're absolutely blistering on fire. They got a great quarterback, great rookie receiver, Damian Alford, 4 touchdowns in 2 games. Everything is pointing in the right direction. They're going to play the Montreal Alouettes, coming up this week on Thursday, which I'm going to get out to that game. I'm excited to get out to that game, but I'm going to take it back to their head coach, Dave Dickenson. So last year, at the end of the season, we had all hellfire breaking loose in the CFL. Everyone talking about how bad the Stampeders were, how terrible they are. They fired Mark Killam. They hired his brother. Everybody pointed the finger to Dave Dickenson, and there was a lot of people calling for his head. Dave Dickenson, is he, Sheldon, your stud, or is he still a dud?
All right, Chev. Now that's a great one, and I love this angle on it because not only that, let's take it even a few years further back when Huffnagel started stepping out of the organization and Dave started putting his stamp on it. Things didn't go as smoothly as he would have liked. Suddenly, the quarterback train ended. The offense wasn't producing. The things that he was trained to do, that Huff was doing, wasn't going well. And yeah, there's a lot of negative attention on Dave. And you know what, Dave? I'll tell you to your face. He's my training partner back when we were still in the CFL. Dave, you earned every bit of criticism that you got. But I'll tell you what, right now, Dave Dickenson is my stud. He earns every bit of credit for reinventing the Calgary Stampeders with Jay McNeil as president, but him stepping in there and making some really tough decisions for the organization. Dude, it is paying off. They brought in Vernon Adams. They have an offensive system that honors the run. Even under Huffnagel, they did not honor the run throughout the regular season. There's something special about the Calgary Stampeders right now, and you would be a fool if you did not acknowledge that this was Dave Dickenson's stamp on this organization. I don't know where he dug this out from within himself to completely change a franchise around. We know he can run under a great GM, but now we also know that he can become a great GM himself, make good personnel decisions, change a coaching staff over, and come out smelling like gold.
So you're convinced that you don't smell like gold. This is roses. So you're convinced now, right? Because if I'm correct, last week you picked against the Stamps.
I did because my strategy is very simple. Show me what you are, and I will get behind you. So I loved what he did in Saskatchewan. I didn't think they could do it in Saskatchewan, but I also didn't think they could do it against Winnipeg in a revenge game. He did both. Well, and they did while protecting a quarterback, running the ball, and that defensive coordinator. I don't even know who they've got. I don't even know the guy's name. Very simple defense. Everybody on the field knows exactly what their assignment is. That is a well-run organization right now, and it all starts with Dave Dickenson.
Well, I'm just going to go on record as saying that when everyone was calling for his head last year, I was the one that said cooler heads had to prevail, and that you don't come across a talent like this as a head coach in a long time. And if you give up on him, you're giving up on years and years of successful outcomes because you're upset because of 1 or 2 years. And yeah, it was tough to see him let Mark Killam go. And sure, there was people that looked sideways that his brother was there, right, easily to step into the limelight, and he let some other guys go. But you know what?
Players were coming out of the woodworks, bad mouthing the way that Dave Dickenson ran a team.
But you know what? They're winning, and guess what? No one's coming out of the woodwork anymore. So, Dave, you're a stud. I told you. I said it last year. I stuck by your side, and it's paying off. And that's why I picked you last week, and that's why I made a lot of headway on Sheldon in the pool. Next, stud or dud. We're going to be talking about the CEO that go to a Coldplay concert and get caught on camera with your, I guess, your mistress, your head of HR, Sheldon. Big, it blew up. Everyone knows the story. Is this dude CEO no at the Coldplay concert? Sheldon, is stud or dud?
Well, I mean, obviously this is an absolute dud, but I'm not going to sit here and moralize. Guys, you can live your life the way you want to live. I'll make my own moral decisions privately. I'm not here to be anybody's moral compass. He's my dud purely from the standpoint that the way he handled this, he's at a Coldplay concert. There's 50,000 people there. He gets caught on the camera. All he has to do is turn that hug, and the hug's a little bit high, turn it into a sister, but start doing the awkward
Heimlich,
maybe the Heimlich. Maybe I'm just a bad dancer and I'm socially awkward and I shouldn't have done that. There's a million things that he could have done to just say, wow, you caught me in an awkward moment, but I'm a geeky guy trying to have fun. What does he do? He changes his face. He crawls down underneath the bench, tries to hide behind a banner. Dude, there's nothing more guilty that you possibly could have done in that situation. Just look at this right here. Okay, cool. Tying my shoe. No, I'm not tying my shoe. I am literally under the chair. Dude behind me is like, give me the Metallica. Everybody there knows. Oh, dude. All you have to do, own the moment. Just start dancing like a dweeb, and no one will ever notice. But this guy, it's a bad response.
And then he doubled down by blaming Coldplay for catching him on the kiss cam.
Oh,
it's a dud move on him. But you know what? As the CEO of a startup internet company that no one ever heard of prior to last week, complete stud move, because the new incoming CEO literally said that. He said, our company has never been more world-renowned than this point now, and it's come under an unfortunate circumstance, but there has never been more eyes pointed to this company to see what we're going to do and what we do. And for that, I mean, you can't buy that type of publicity. So there's sometimes they say no publicity is bad publicity. So unfortunately, it cost him his job, cost her job, but the company, astronomy,
if
astrology,
I'm a shareholder right now, I'm loving it.
Yeah, loving it. And then the final one, Sheldon. You know what? Great segue, because Darin mentioned it that Bruce was his Superman. I went to see the new Superman, and I'm going to tell you that
stud or dud.
Despite a lot of mixed reviews going in, there's people worried it was going to be too woke, too unserious, it was a really entertaining movie, and I'm going to give it a stud. I was a big fan of the Henry Cavill Superman, the last series, but it's a very dark and brooding Superman story, and I loved it. It told a great story of this Superman that, he died, and all this, like from the Batman versus Superman, the Man of Steel, the Justice League. It was a great trilogy, and it will always rest as a great trilogy for me. But this new Superman is a refreshing take. It's fun superhero stories. There was humor, but it wasn't too corny. There was action, but it wasn't all over the place. It had just the right mix of the dorky, geeky Superman that it was funny, because someone asked me, well, does he look like Superman? I said, you know what? When you first look at him, you're like, this guy's not Superman if you compare him to the last one. But once you start hearing him talk and his mannerisms and the things he actually stands for as the movie goes on, you're like, this guy is Superman. He literally is Superman, and not because of his looks, but how he acts the part. And I thought it was great. My kids loved it. And that's always for me is kind of the barometer as to whether it's good or not. Cause I like most movies, and unless something is really in your face, like, out there, I usually enjoy it. But my boys, who are now more critical of superhero movies and have a little bit more fatigue, they all loved it. They all said it was at least a 7.5 out of 10 or more. I would go watch it again. He has his dog highly featured in the movie, and if you don't like his dog Crypto, you're just a terrible person. And
he has a dog named Crypto?
Yeah, Crypto, and some really great supporting characters from some of the comic books that I read back in the day. I don't want to give it away, but I thought it was really good. And Jamin's asking, he's like, I don't get how many people say the movie was woke. It actually wasn't woke at all. And
that makes me nervous, because I've heard about 5 reviewers say the same thing, and usually if you have to refer to that maybe it was woke or something like that. But because so many superhero movies over the last 5 to 7 years have kind of gone that way, I love hearing that we're just back to great superhero movies. Good guys make the right decisions in challenging situations.
And there's a Mr. Terrific character who I never read in the comic books. I read comic books in the 90s, early 2000s, then I stopped. But this Mr. Terrific character, who I guess he is a Superman supporting cast hero, his character was phenomenal in the movie. And if you ever picture the Robert Downey Jr. character in Tropic Thunder, picture him as one of superheroes' allies. He was hilarious and awesome. So I don't want to spoil it. But it's definitely worth the watch. For me, it was a stud of a movie. But if I carry this conversation a little bit forward as we go to the ending, another stud this week is our good buddy Trey. Producer Trey has been invited to the Alberta Open. So he's been invited to the Alberta Open, which is a very prestigious honor for him. So Trey, there you go.
Yeah. So this is about as big as it comes in the
Yeah.
province of Alberta. This is not a college tournament. He's not going against University of Lethbridge or Mount Royal or any of those things. He works his ass off this whole season, and he made it onto the alternate list. Continue to shoot great rounds of golf. And yeah, sure enough, he was notified. He sent us the text in the text line. He is moving up, and he is formally invited to take part in the Alberta Open.
Well, and Trey, great job. And I think it's, the reason is because you're coachable. You had that train wreck of a round a few months ago. You listened to Chevy and Nasty's coaching advice, and then next thing you know, you're going up, up, up. Hole in one a couple of weeks ago, and then here you are going to the Alberta Open. It's so fitting, and also to honor that this week, Netflix is releasing Happy Gilmore 2 for you. So you can't have a better weekend. So guys, I think we're going to wrap it up. Now, again, I want to go back and watch the Darin interview because for me it was fascinating. I hope it was as fascinating for you guys. Please, if you liked it, guys, like and share our story. That's what we really want to get to. Stories and conversations that could change lives. We're Chevy and Nasty. We got lots more to talk about next week. We're going to see you guys here 10:30 on next Tuesday. I guess, Sheldon, we're out. Go Stamps, go.